Yeah, okay, so yeah, so as I was saying, for the Mysplice problem, the key here really is to just make sure that no matter what we do, we're doing it to the original array, right? We can't create a brand new array because obviously anything that creates a brand new array, it basically overwrites the reference we have to our original array. And the way Splice works is Splice edits the original array. So that's just like the main pitfall we want to be aware of. One way to think about this, and I'm going to write instructions for now. This isn't code just yet. But what we actually want to do is we actually want to split array into 3 parts. No, 4 parts. Okay. Uh, part number one. Part one is going to be beginning of array to start index. Part two is going to be elements to delete. Okay. Part three is elements to add. And then part four is, I'll call it remaining elements, right? So in the example, if I go back to the workshop problem here, in the example here, if I go to 1 and I add in apples, the parts I'm keeping is going to be 1, okay? The things that I'm deleting is going to be 2. The things I'm going to be adding is going to be apples. And the part that I keep is going to be 3, okay? And the crux of this problem is remembering what I said in class about how when we talk about a reference to or an address for an array or an object for that matter, probably more for an array, what really matters is just understanding like that reference keeps track of where our array starts, right? Not where the entire thing is. And so that just means this needs to maintain original ref. Okay, that's by far the most important thing, is that in part one, that's where we maintain our original ref. If we maintain our original reference correctly, we can do anything we want once we're past that part. So let's actually start this, right? So let's say I'll call this array beginning. And how do I want to do this? How do I want to do this? Sorry, let me think through this quick. What would be the best way? Okay. So sorry, I should probably talk to you guys while I'm thinking. So one thing that I'm thinking about doing right now actually is I could use pop, right? Pop removes things from the end of my array, and really that's kind of what I really needed to do, because essentially what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to go through this array. I want to separate it into these different parts, and then I want to be able to recombine them again. So let me think. What's the best way for me to go out doing this?
Slice.
Using slice works, right? So using slice, I can do it to create these things here. But then after I create slice, I would actually still need to go back, and then I would still need to remove it. Okay, yeah, all right. Okay, so let's do it that way, and then afterwards, so I'll do it like a way that I think is probably not the most efficient. After we do it, we can come back and see if there's a more efficient way. Okay. Okay. So let's think about okay. So let's talk about part two. So I'm actually just going to call these variables part one, part two, and part three, and part four. So hopefully everyone's referenced to the one above. So part two equals the elements to delete, right? So that's just array2.slice. And then it's essentially start index, comma, start index plus num delete. Yeah. Okay. Sound good? Okay, cool.
For this,
Yep.
Question. I thought we weren't allowed to use like.
Yeah, I think they said you couldn't use splice, right?
Slice.
I'm sorry.
I know, but we're using slice.
Oh,
Yeah, sorry.
oh,
The question asked us not to use splice with a P, which makes sense because we're recreating it. But I think slice will be fair. Will be fair game here. Um, okay, so there's that. Let part 3. Yep, part 3 is just equal to this array, and I'll call this add element. Okay, let me see that, and then let part 4 equal to should be array dot slice again. And then here I'll just do start index. Oh god, this thing. Okay, sorry. So it should be start index. Okay, yep. So this should go from. Oh, what's wrong with my keyboard? There we go. Okay, so here I'm gonna go start index from num delete, and I'm gonna go until array dot length. Okay. This is, once again, this may not be the most efficient way to do it, but let's just run with this for now because we can always figure out a way to do it. And if we don't like it, we can always figure out ways to make it better later. Okay. But for now, does this make sense? Part 2 is the things I want to delete, right? And so if I know my array wants to start at, let's say 2, and I'm trying to delete one thing from it, well, then I'm just going to slice. Like if I want to create an array of just the things I wanted to remove, then that will basically be array.slice. I will be starting at my starting position, and then I will go until my starting position plus the number of things I want to delete. Okay, so this creates an array of all the things I want to remove. On line 9, part 3, all I'm doing is I'm creating an array with one element, which is the one thing I want to add, because I think the question said we can only add one thing at a time. So here I'm just adding one thing, making an array out of it. And then part 4 is basically everything in my original array that I don't want to touch that's near the tail end, right? So this is going to be array.slice. And now I basically start where I left off previously. If I say, hey, I wanted to, let's say start at position 3, remove 5 things. Well, great. In my original array, that's just starting at position 8 and going until the very end of the array. So here's how I create parts 2, 3, and 4. Does everyone follow right now my logic? Great. Okay, so I'll use a while loop here because I don't actually have a reason why. But if I do a while array dot length is larger than, I'll probably have it off by one error here somewhere. So now I'm trying to do is I'm actually trying to parse down my original array, and I have to do it from the end, right? Because if I do it from the beginning, I could lose a reference to my array. So if I want to start from the end, I basically want to say, okay, if I want to start at position 3, for example, as the thing I want to start removing things, then I want to keep track of 0, 1, and 2, which is length 3. Length, oh shoot, so it might be while this is greater than or equal to dot length, I do array dot pop. Okay, and so after I do this, now I'll put a comment here, array should equal part 1. Does everyone see that?
yeah.
Right, so here, like I said, I may have an off by one error here somewhere, and I'll be lazy and let the test tell me that I'm erring out. But conceptually, people understand what I'm trying to do here, right? I took my original array and I'm just kind of keep removing one item until I reach my desired length, and my desired length is whatever it takes to get from 0 to start index. Everyone good? Cool. All right, awesome. So now we have parts 1, 2, 3, and 4. So now I just got to go through and recreate things, right? I'm trying to join together these arrays, but I can't use concat because what concat does is concat actually creates a brand new array for me. So that's no good. What I need to do is I actually need to just use something like push. So what I'll do is and this is a little bit lazy of me, but I'll say part. Oh, sorry, not part one. Array dot push, and then I'll just do add element for now. I'm not gonna use part two because I basically just put it one element in an array. But really, there's no need to, right? I can just do it like this way directly as well. This works equally fine. And now I basically combined parts 1 and 2. Oh, sorry, parts 1 and 3. My bad. Parts 1 and 3. Everyone good so far?
Yeah.
Cool. And then now all I have to do is add in part 4. Oh man, you should tell me these typos I'm making here. Okay, for part 4, all I gotta do is go back to my trusty for loop, let I equal 0. I is less than part 4 dot length, dot, and then I plus plus. Yep. And then for everything, I'm just gonna do array dot push. And what am I pushing? What I call this thing? Part 4. Part 4 index of I. And oh wow, my indentation was way off. You should tell me this. Okay, cool. So now this part combined parts 1 and 3. This now put a comment here. Adds in part 4. Okay, cool. So I feel like this is a bit redundant, but let's just paste it in and make sure that it works first before I take any questions. It's very possible I could have an error here somewhere in terms of being off by 1 somewhere. Or off by everything. Wow.
I think you just have to return the array.
Oh, I'm supposed to return it?
You return part 3, I think. Or no, part 2.
Oh, you're right. Thank you. I totally forgot about that part. Yeah, great point. The reason why I made a part 2 to start with is because I needed to return it, right? So I need to return part 2. Yep, so I need to return the things I got deleted. Okay, great. Thank you, whoever pointed it out to me. Actually, I'll just do it here. Return part 2. Okay. Okay, great. Less failures. Let's figure out why. Remove multiple elements if delete count is greater than 1. Add the new value of the correct index. Okay, these look all fairly related, which is a good news. Okay, so let's just start tackling them. Mutates the original array by removing the correct elements from it. Our stuff, we have food, trash, clothes. I call Mysplice on our stuff 1, 1. And now it should just have food and clothes. Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry. What happened here, and I'm guessing what in our code, so my guess happened is we pushed in an undefined somewhere, right? Actually, we just drop a console log here, right? We just do a console, oh wow, console.log, David, your stuff is, and then this is our stuff, and we can see exactly what we should be seeing here. So I'll run this. This should fail again. I go to my console, and my stuff is undefined close. Interesting. Okay, cool. So this tells me that I removed way too many things. So maybe I should be, let's see. The reason why that would be because while array.length is greater than or equal to start index. So in that case, start index is 1. So array, oh, okay, right. So this is just less than, okay, so that was my off by 1 error. Okay, if I run this now, okay, much better. All right, that was a off by 1 error I had earlier. Okay. Great. And then now when I look at my console, yep, there's the extra undefined I shoved in. And the reason why that error came about was just because if I look here in my code, I just assumed that I was always going to have something to add. And if there's nothing to add here, then this by definition, by default, is going to be undefined. And so here I'm just adding an undefined to my array, right? So let's just do, and this is super lazy of me, but let's just do it for now. If add element does not equal undefined. Okay, very lazy, but for now it kind of gets the job done because that just helps me make sure that if there's nothing to add, then I don't add anything. Okay, so now that I've changed this code, and everyone follows so far, right? As I'm troubleshooting this, kind of what I'm doing at each step, and how I'm looking through the errors. Great. Okay, now when I run it, what are the errors? Okay, cool. That was it. Awesome. Okay, so yep. So going back to this now here, yeah. So once again, the crux of the problem was just we can never lose the reference to our original array. We need to maintain it, and at some point we needed to divide it into these 4 parts. Once I divide it into parts 2, 3, and 4, I can always recreate in a new array from scratch. No one cares. I just got to make sure I never, ever lose reference to the original array, which is going to be part 1. And then once I do successfully create these 4 different parts, well, then it's just like a really, really simple thing of just recombining these into a single array. Except I can't use concat. I have to just keep pushing whatever I need onto the end of my original array. Like I said, there's probably a more efficient way to write this, but maybe this lengthy way is also good to kind of just like demonstrate the concepts that we're doing. But yeah, any questions here?
Should we do it the more efficient way?
I need to think about it. What a
Okay.
more efficient way would be. Parses down original, but I guess, huh. Yeah, maybe. I guess I'm just trying to think from a functional standpoint. Like, what we're doing is kind of unavoidable, in the sense that like, in the sense. So okay, sorry. So the parts of our function that's currently inefficient, right, is that if, for example, okay, so if I wanted to make this so the parts of the function are inefficient is on lines 8 and 10, right? I go into the original array and I read these values, okay? And then on lines 12 through 14, I go back into my array and for the values I just read, I then delete them. Okay, so one efficiency I can think of here is that, well, as I go through this array, you know, I really should be, sorry, I really should be reading and deleting the values kind of in the same step, right? Like, for example, if I go through if I work backwards, right? When I look at the last element in the array, I should know, is that going into parts 1, 2, 3, or 4? Or I guess just 1, 2, or 4, right? And so one way for me to do that would be I actually can do a lot of this in my while loop. Whereas I can say, while array, so basically while I still have something to delete, instead of just doing array.pop removes it, but I should be able to figure out, so for example, I'm just going to write this in pseudocode down here. You know, if array.length, for example, right? Let's say it's larger than start index plus num delete. I could say like this. So somewhere, assuming I created part 4 dot push array dot pop. Right. So here, assuming I created like an empty part 4 up top here. So rather than trying to create part 2 and part 4 using slice from the beginning, if I make part 2 an empty array and part 4 an empty array, as I go through each element, I am either going to be putting that element that I just deleted into either part 2 or part 4. and then I'll stop once this condition once again is met. So this is probably, and I don't know if this will run exactly correctly, but just as an aside, this could be like another way for us to write this equation or write this function that's a little bit more efficient, because now we're only reading, we're going to each value and we're doing everything we need to do with it in one step instead of doing it across multiple loops. Make sense? I don't think there's a way to modify this down here. I think this part is it's fine. We're just adding one or multiple things, so it's gonna need to be a straight read through regardless. But yeah, I think out here is kind of where the efficiency would be if we wanted to make it more efficient.
Okay.
Yep. Any other questions? Cool. Awesome. I will stop the recording now and upload this up onto upload